The war room inside Draven's fortress was dimly lit, the massive iron chandelier overhead casting jagged shadows across the stone walls. The heavy scent of burning metal and blood hung in the air, carried from the forges that never stopped hammering out weapons for the coming war. Draven stood over a map of murk dusk, his fingers tightening around the edges as his mind worked through every possible scenario. His forces were growing stronger, his war machines were nearly ready. But something felt off. The attack should have come by now. Echo Division had taken prisoners. They had captured or killed nearly every one of his operatives sent to Earth, except for one. The captain. Draven's jaw clenched at the thought. The man was still missing, which meant one of two things. Either he was dead, or worse, he was talking. His cold, sharp eyes lifted toward the only other person in the room. The trader. The trader stood with his usual relaxed stance, arms crossed, his dark eyes unreadable as he gazed at the map, his lips curled in that familiar, untrustworthy smirk. "You seem uneasy, my lord," the trader said smoothly. Draven wasn't in the mood for his games. "I don't like waiting," he muttered. The trader hummed in thought. "And what exactly are you waiting for?" Draven turned toward him, eyes flashing with restrained fury. "A response. Echo Division doesn't just sit on their hands. If they know about this," he gestured to the war map, the legions of forces gathering within his fortress, "then they'll act before we do." The trader tilted his head slightly, considering. In truth, he knew Echo Division was already mobilizing. He had played his part perfectly, keeping Draven on edge while feeding Ravina everything she needed to stay one step ahead. But Draven, he was still in the dark, and the trader intended to keep it that way. "Perhaps," the trader mused, "but you underestimate your own reach. They don't have the numbers to stop you. Even if they move first, they'll only weaken themselves before the real war begins." Draven exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders not easing. He was no fool. He knew when he was being handled. Still, the trader had a point. After a long moment of silence, Draven spoke. "Double the guard shifts at every gate," he ordered. "Reinforce the armories. Get my war machines ready for transport." The trader smiled. "You expect them to strike?" Draven's grip tightened on the hilt of his sword. "I expect them to act," he said coldly. "And when they do, they'll find out I'm ready." The war horns sounded in the distance. In the lower halls of the fortress, mercenaries, soldiers, and dark sorcerers assembled in perfect rows, their armor catching the glow of the black forge fires. Weapons were passed out. Strategies were finalized. The fortress of Draven was no longer just a stronghold. It was a war machine. And when the first battle came, it would not be the last. The fortress gates slammed shut. The banners of war rose over the crumbling ruins of Eldermire. And deep in the shadows, the trader watched, his smirk growing wider. Everything was going exactly as planned.